Good luck to all, mazel tov to all. Baruch Hashem. We all should be zeichet to simchas and feeling just nothing like it. Nothing. The feeling of achdus of family, the beauty of sharing relationships and simcha with family and friends is special. I'm looking forward to Monday night. Okay, very interesting daf. We discussed the halacha of the Karban Tamid, that the Karban Tamid is Deicha Shabbos. In fact, the Karban Pesach is Deicha Shabbos. We learned that from the Karban Tamid. It says Ola Shabbat b'Shabbatoy Alasat Tamid. And Mela, it says that you're bringing the Karban Musaf in addition. So it must be in addition that you're bringing the Tamid. It says by the Karban by Tamid, it says Moado. It says by Pesach Moado. And we learned the Gezerah Shava that it's Deicha Shabbos. In fact, we learned that it's Deicha Tumah as well. We said that only, where do we learn Tumah from? Ish, Asher Tamil Nefesh, Derech Rechaika. We said an Ish goes to Pesach Sheni, but the Tzibur does not go to Pesach Sheni. So we learned from there that Tumah is Hutra B'Tzibur, and today's daf is going to deal with those in Yonim, not only by Pesach, but by other Kabbanos, where Tumah is Hutra B'Tzibur. We're going to see the Machlokes between Rav Shimon and Rav Yehuda, where the Tumah is a B'di'ev, the Tumah is Lechatchila, where the Tumah is Hutra, meaning will allow it not, Nishmeni ganzen Hartzen, we say in Yiddish, and it's only doicha the actual bringing of it, but you won't be able to eat it, versus Hutra, where it's totally mutta, and you'd even be able to eat the carbon. So the difference between the Pesach and all the other Karbanos Tzibur, that halacha is that is what is Hutra, is mutta, is whether you can eat it or not. Pesach's the only carbon unique, again, that you can eat it, and that's going back to how you saw. We spoke about that. We spoke out that the whole purpose of the Karban Pesach was to show the Mitzrayim that we were the Am HaNivchar, because we're able to go ahead and share a carbon with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every carbon until that time was a carbon oila. It was totally burnt. The Mitzrayim would make fun of us. They'd call us Ivrim, like lowlives. So from the other side, HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Mitzrayim, Dafka showed the Mitzrayim that we took their God, we shechted it, and not only we shechted it, we ate it, we shared it with God. The Karban Pesach is a carbon, the first carbon in the history of the world that showed the uniqueness of Chai. To Mishulchan Gavoa Kazacha, that we can go ahead and share a carbon with the Rebbeinu Shalom. So therefore, even when it's brought B'Tuma, it's brought B'Tuma on, we're able to go ahead and eat the Karban Pesach. That's the panemius of the Indian. Says the Mishnah. Chamisha Devarim, there are 5 things boyim B'Tuma, 5 karbanos that are brought B'Tuma. They ne'acholim B'Tuma, but however they can't be consumed with Tuma. Ha'Omer, the carbon Omer and Tesayinisins that matters the Chodesh in the Medina. Ushtei alechem that's brought on Shavuos that matters the Chodesh in the Beis Hamikdash. The lechem haponim that's brought Shabbos every Shabbos is split up. It's on the shulchan. It was divided by the Kohanim going in and going out. The zivchei shalmei tzibur. Those were the 2 shlamim that accompanied the shtei lechem. The uniqueness of them, that they are the only shlamim that are kosher kedoshim. The only shlamim that are kosher kedoshim. Every other shlamim is kosher kalam. Usir Rosh Chodeshim, and the serum that are bought on Rosh Chodesh. As we're going to see, every seer, every single goat that was bought as the Karban Chatas is Doicha Tumah. You can eat it, but it's Doicha Tumah. And why we picked that Rosh Chodesh, then the Gemara will find a reason. HaPesach Sheba B'Tumah, Nechal B'Tumah. The Chiddush of the Karban Pesach, that not only is it brought B'Tumah, it is eaten B'Tumah. The only purpose of the Karban Pesach being brought is for Achila. And again, we understand the panemius of the matter based upon that beautiful word from Victor Miller, Zechet Tzadik L'Bracha. Says the Gemara, Chamisha Lemutei Mai, when the Torah goes ahead and gives a number, the number is always to exclude something. So why are we excluding when we said 5? We can always count, guys. You can go ahead, you can count and say, Shelechem, Oimer, you can count Sirish Chodesh, you can count 5. Why is the Torah giving me a number? Why is the Mishnah giving me a number? The Karban Chagiga that's brought on the 15th, we discussed this earlier. The Karban Chagiga, there's one that was brought on the 14th that accompanied the Pesach. In order to facilitate even the Pesach ala Sova, you should be satiated. But there's a mitzvah to bring a Karban Chagiga on Yud Gimel. This has the din of a carbon siba since it's bought b'chenufya, since it's bought with a population, and also it's kaveh azman. You're bringing it on the 15th, so you might think that it has the din of a carbon siba that's doiche b'tzibur because it has those qualities. It's A b'tzibur, B it's kaveh azman. Kamash malon, not the salkadet chaminan kiven the carbon sibahu ukavayle moyed. It's a carbon siba and it has a set zman time I think titchet tuma you bring it betuma kamash malon even the islay tashlumim kol shiva. Since the chagiga you have 7 days to make it up. Right? Lo yidachya Shabbos. When the Shabbos lo yidachya, when it's not doicha Shabbos, lo yidachya tuma, it's not doicha tuma. Rule of thumb, usually they go together. If it's doicha Shabbos, it's doicha tuma, and here it's not. I'll tell you something very fascinating, guys. Sukkot and Pesach has a dim tashlumim, correct? What about Shavuos? You hear this? Shavuos is 1 day. You have tashlumim, guys. Even afterwards, there's a dim tashlumim on the Karma Chagiga. Even by Shavuos, It's a very unique thing. Okay, very geschmack. So the chiddush of Chamisha is to go ahead and exclude the Chagigas Yud Gimel. That the Chagigas Yud I said Tesvav, not Yud Gimel, Tesvav. V'nisni nami sir hagolim. You went ahead. You just say the sirim Reish Chodesh, guys. There are other sirim. Every yontif had their own sirim. Not just Reish Chodesh, every Seir, every Sukkot and Shavuos, and they always see on board. So why did you only mention Reish Chodesh? Says the Gemara, well, you don't have to mention Seiri Regalim, because Hatani Le Zivchei Shamei Tzibur. You mention Zivchei Shamei Tzibur. And what you're telling me is any carbon Tzibur that's a blood carbon would be Daicha. So once you went ahead and said Zivchei Shamei Tzibur, Nichlal, incorporated in that will be the Seirim of the Regalim, which are also what? Brought betum, they can be brought betuma since they are blood carbonates as opposed to a mincha, which is not a blood carbon. So when he said the zivchei shamei tzibur included in the zivchei shamei tzibur was in fact what the sirim regalim. Therefore, was unnecessary to mention it in the Mishnah. Oh, okay, that's very good. So if that's the case, why'd you bother mentioning siri resh chodesh? Once you told me that all blood carbonates that are kaveh zman are included in the words Zivchei Shamei Tzibur, so Reish Chodesh also. So why do you go ahead and uniquely take Reish Chodesh out? Why do you include it? And for the Gemara, Amid Aleph, Sir Reish Chodeshim Mitzrichale. You need the Sir of Reish Chodesh. Salkadai, I would have thought. It doesn't say the word Mayed by what? By Reish Chodesh. Kamash Malon, the Reish Chodesh Ikri Mayed. Kamash Malon, that even though it doesn't say in the Torah proper, we learn it from Divrei Ksuvim. Kidei Abaya, Domra Abaya, Tammuz the Haishasa, Tammuz of the year when the Meraglim returned from their eventful trip, right? When they showed up, that year Tammuz was Malay. Usually Nisan, right? Year Tammuz. Usually Tammuz is a chaser. Usually it's 29 days to the month. That year was a 30, and that as a result they returned on 8. They returned on 8 rather than 9. And since they returned on 8, since they returned on 8 rather than 9, they cried that night. Hashem gave them tests. If they would have came on 9, then Tisha B'Av would have been on Yud. And the HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted the day for the ages to be tests. So to facilitate that be on 8, we had the Rosh Chodesh. It was a Malay. The month was a full. Now, why was that? Then what do we need this for? The Chsiv Koro Alai Moyed Lishba Bachurai. I called it Moyed. I called Rosh Chodesh Moyed to break my bachrim, to my chosen. So you see that from this pasuk in Eicha that it was called a Moyed. Marshoya is a very good question, guys. Divrei Torah v'divrei Kabbalah lo yafinon. You do not learn out Divrei Torah from Divrei Kabbalah, and we're learning about from Eicha. And the answer is that this is not a limud; it's a gili milsav almahu. In other words, we knew that it has din of a Moed. We just had to find the source for it. The source was in Eicha. So Memela, that's the Kiddush why it's listed in the Mishnah. Even though it's the same Sibur carbon of Domim as Sirei Regalim, we listed Reish Chodesh because of the uniqueness to tell us that what, in fact, it's a Mayed. Fred Gemara L'Meimer Dekul in Mayed. Asi, you're telling me that what? That all of these, they all learn out from Mayed. The reason why these are Docha, because it's called Mayed, not Emili. How do you know they're all called Moadim? Tan Rabbanan. This is Parshas Emor. We only learned that Tumah is Docha Shabbos, that Karbanis of Docha Shabbos and Tumah from Tumah and Pesach. Afilu b'Shabbos, b'Moado afilu b'Tumah. Shar Karbanis Tzibur Minayim. In other words, if I would have, before we began Shir with the Hakdama, you all knew this. I mean, you might have forgotten it. I'm not quite sure if you forgot it. The possibility exists that maybe you forgot it. but we went and we said, we learned, guys, we learned Shabbos from Tamid to Pesach, and we learned Tumah from Pesach to Tamid, according to Reish Lakish. It's Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, where we learned it from. The Maskana, we learned it from Pesach Sheni, that its Sibur goes to the Yachid goes to Pesach Sheni, but its Sibur doesn't go to Pesach Sheni. Okay, and then once we established by Pesach, we learned to Tamid that it's also brought to Tumah. So it's very good. So now where was my source? So the Mishnah listed, we all accepted it. Where's the source for this din that is Doicha Tumah? Okay, where's the source for this? Okay, so let's see. So this is Pashas Pinchas, and it says Moadechem, and it lists all the Moadim. Okay, so now that's speaking about all the Kabbanas Tzibor. How do you know, right? The Omer and it's a company Kabbanas. The Shtei Lechem had a company Kabbanas. Rashi means the Kabbanas that accompanies these two. It's Kaveya Moyed for all of them, even for the carbon Omer. So Fred the Gemara question, why do I need all of them? Why don't I just list one and learn from all the others? Okay, for the Kavi Pinchas Eliyahu, who just came in, we're going ahead and we're learning that the Kabbanas Tzibor are Doicha Tumah. So we had a source for Pesach, we had a source for Tamid, and the Gemara just gave its source for all the other Kabbanas Tzibor, such as the Seir of the Regalim, such as the Oimish and the Shtei Alechem, and that were brought on Shavuos. Now the Gemara wants to know why did you have to bother having psukim for all of them? Why can't I just list one and learn from it? And of course, we're going to try go through that, and we're going to see why one couldn't be learned from other ones. That's what we're going to do right now. Says the Gemara. Let's say you just read the Tamid, that by Tamid. It's Doicha Shabbos. How mean a Tamid shekain tadir v'kalol? A carbon Tamid is brought every day, tadir, the kalol, and it's a carbon oila and totally burnt. There's that chumrah. That's why it's Doicha. Aval Pesach, but the Pesach which is not burnt, the Pesach which is eaten and it's only brought once a year, I'd say maybe not. Kamash Malon. Because Rechman and Pesach shon is Karish. Pesach, which is on his Karish, therefore it's Doicha Shabbos. Aval Tamid the ein on his Karish, Emeloi, Kamash Malon. Because Rechman Hani Tarti, Pesach and Pesach and Tamid, Havamina Hani who Pesach Tamid Hishbem Tzad Chomer. They both have a Tzad Chomer. What's the Tzad Chomer? Tamid that it's Tadir v'Kalol, and Pesach Shu Anish Karis. Aval Shar Kabbanas Tzibor, the Sira Golim, the Sira Shchaydish, the Oimer, the Shtei Lechem, and the Zichay Shamit Tzibor, which do not have these chumis. Emaloi, I would say they're not Doicha. Kimash Kasrachmana Elu Tasul Hashem b'Moadechem. Now, because Rachmana Elu Tasul Hashem b'Moadechem, Avamina Shar Kabbanas Tzibor Haboyin Lechaper. I would say only the other tzibos which come for the purpose of kapara. The oilers that are brought on the come to mechap. Obviously, the soya that's brought comes to mechap. It's called mechatas, and the oiler comes to be mechaper for mitzvah sasei. An oimer is not mechaper for anything. An oimer is a matir. The shtei lechem is a matir. So I would think maybe these are not included in the heter of tuma. Avol oimer shtei lechem the ein boyin lechaper elu lahatir. Right, the oimer comes to be matir the chodesh in the Medina. The Shtei Lechem comes to be matir the chodesh, the winter wheat in the Beis Hamikdash. Ba'alman, I would say what elahatam ba'alman uloi mashmon. It says what v'dabeshem moedei because Rachman and oimer v'shtei Lechem lechudayu havamina adarabah oimer shtei Lechem the alimi the boyin lahatir. That's why they're doicha. Aval hanech, but the sira golim and zivchei shamit tziba v'chayin uloi kamash malon. That what we needed a source for all of these things. Very good. Savrua, they held to say. Rashi brings. Savrua ha'amurim b'nei yeshiva, the amurim, the b'nei yeshiva, hoyasvurim kain, lefika chutzrich lehem nishol had the boy lekamei. They held one way, therefore they had to ask the question. Savrua they held the following, and because of the following, they're going to ask a question. Del kuli alma tuma duchuyehi b'tzibur. Now, just as a hakdama, fellas, again we mentioned it once, I'll mention it again. There's two ways to view tuma. Tuma is now usually you can't bring a carbon b'tuma, right? You can't. When we allow you, Is it like completely mutter, or is it b'koshim mutter? When we allow you, is it like you do whatever you want because tumah is hutra, meaning there's no din of tumah here by the tzibur, or no, there is a din of tumah, and what you can do to facilitate the carbon being accepted, you do, and nothing more than that. So, for example, in our Mishnah, you're going ahead, you're bringing the carbon, but you're not eating the carbon. If tumah was hutra b'tzibur, then that would make sense that you could even eat it. In other words, there's no din of tumah. If tumah is the chuya b'tzibur, the evid, I'll let you bring it, but you won't be able to eat it, right? So that's the starting to learn of what tumah is hutra b'tzibur or hutra, and this is the Gemara that deals with it. Very, very famous Gemara. Also, be aware that the Kohen Gadol wore on top of his head something called a tzitz. The tzitz was the facilitator of the removal of tumah. Right now, the question is, we're going to see whether it worked when Aaron wasn't wearing it, or only worked when he was wearing it. And if tumah is hutra b'tzibur from a pasuk, why do I need the tzitz at all? So this is all the upcoming Gemara that we're going to do now. Fascinating Gemara, very, very nice Gemara. Savud el kuli alma, everyone held tumah is the chuyi b'tzibur. That tumah is duchi b'tzibur. Uboi tzitz l'ratzos. And since it's the chuya, since it's not mutter, you need the tzitz to facilitate it working. The leka tana de shamalei dama tumah hutra b'tziba. There's no tana who says that tumah is completely mutter b'tziba. El Rabbi Yehuda, only the tana Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya sits bein sheyesh al mitzchay, whether he's wearing on his forehead, or bein she'eno al mitzchay, where it's not on his forehead. Miratze, it works. Divrei Reb Shimon. In other words, the tzitz works. It's not only works when it doesn't have to be connected to the Kohen Gadol's forehead. It has its own electrical source. It's a nuclear device. It doesn't be connected to any electricity. It doesn't get connected to the Kohen Gadol's head. It works. That's Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda Omer to be Miratze Tumah, to go ahead and take off Tumah. The tzitz takes off Tumah from the carbon. The carbon. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Oideu al mitzvah, if it's still on his forehead, Miratze. Ein Oideu al mitzvah, if it's not on his forehead, Ein Miratze. Now, Rav Shimon is the one who said that Tumah is Hutcha. Amal Rav Shimon, Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippur yochiach. Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippur will disprove you because it's not on his forehead, and Tumah is taken off a carbon. She'eino al mitzchay, the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur only wears 4 begodim, right? He doesn't wear the golden, the Nezra Kodesh, the tzitz was made out of gold. The Kohen Gadol does not wear any gold on Yom Kippur because ein kategan asa senega. If he walks into the Kodesh Kedoshim wearing gold, it reminds HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol of the golden calf. So he wears no gold whatsoever. Good, and yet we see that why it works. So Rabbi Shimon is bringing a riot to Rabbi Yehuda that you see even when it's not on the Kohen Gadol's mitzvah, it works. Umaratze Amaloi said Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Shimon, Hanach liyom kippurim shetumah hutra b'tzibur. Leave it alone. Why? Because on Yom Kippur, tumah is hutra b'tzibur. Nechlal Rav Shimon sava tumah duchuyi b'tzibur. Again, if tumah is hutra, guys, I don't need anything to go ahead and mechanically remove it. If it's chutcha, it seems to be you need the tzitz. Okay? Says Gemara, with the kul yalma eina tzitz meratze el achilos. And everyone holds that the tzitz is only meratze on achilos. Let's see Rashi on this. The tzitz is only meratze on, first of all, tumah hutra b'tzibur. The ein carbon tzibur tzarech ritzu tzitz el carbon yachid. So if tumah is hutra b'tzibur, what do you need the tzitz for, guys? In other words, we know that tzitz is meratze. We know it works. If you hold tumah is hutra b'tzibur, you don't need a tzitz. Says Rashi, according to the Maniyam, tumah is hutra b'tzibur, but for the yachid who brings the carbon b'tumah by accident, right? That works. That it's accepted the carbon. That is al yidei that sits. So that's for the individual carbon, but not for the tzibur carbon. With the kulyal maklema hanach rabbanon the stam nestisan sarvi enat sitz meratza al achilos al tumah shenoga bebasar. And then what's the tzitz meratza on tumah that touches meat? Ubishiori mincha, or the leftovers of a carbon after kmitza hanecholim el al tumas hadam kamatzim. Another. Everyone, this stam is this the tzitz is not meratza on things that are what are eaten. It's only meratza on dam and emurim, things that are not eaten. Again, there's 3 parts to the carbon. There's the dam, there's the emurim, and then there's the and then there's the meat. So when the tzitz is maratza, it only takes the tumah off the dam and the imurim, that you could permit it to sprinkle it and permit it to burn it. It wouldn't go ahead and permit you to eat the meat. And that's the lashon of the Gemara. With the Kuli Alma, everyone holds, Ein hatzitz meratza ala chilos. The tzitz is not meratza. It doesn't cause acceptance for things that can be eaten. The leka tana de shamalei, there's no tana that we hear from, the Amar who holds, hatzitz meratza ala chilos, that the tzitz ad kedei kach will go ahead and make a carbon able to be eaten. El Rebbe Eliezer, the Tanya Rebbe Eliezer Omer, hatzitz meratza ala chilos. Rabbi Yossi Omer, ein hatzitz meratza ala chilos. Now, so we have machloikis, but so far no questions. All we have is facts. Let's go through the facts. Rabbi Yehuda sits is tumas hotra b'tzibur. Loy Reb Shimon tumas hotra b'tzibur. Loy Rabbi Yehuda that sits I only need for a carbon yachid. Loy Reb Shimon I would need for a carbon tzibur. However, the extent that the tzitz works, according to both these opinions of Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda, is only vis-a-vis the dam and the imurim. It would not be ein that tzitz meratza ala chilos. It would not be on the meat. It would not be on the meat. That's what we're holding right now. We now go ahead and say there is a Tana, Rebbe Eliezer, who holds that the tzitz is meratza on even on meat, the biggest kula. And Rabbi Yossi disagrees. He seems to agree with Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon that it's not meratza on achilas. That's our scorecard, if you will, until now, right? That's a scorecard.
So what happens to the meat according to Rabbi Shimon? And what do they do with the meat? You burn it, or what do you do with it?
You can't eat it.
Right, but what do you do with it?
I think you wait for surasa. Once the carbon's accepted, so I think you'd wait for it to come lean and then put it on, and then burn it. You make it nicer and then burn it. You can't eat it. Right? You can't put it on the mizbeach. Doesn't belong on the mizbeach. The only shiloh is, do you burn it right away? If it's a psul begufa, you'd burn it right away. If it's a psul mach mustava acher, you won't. Okay, that was the rule of thumb we saw the other day. If the psul is in the carbon itself, you're going to burn it right away. If the psul is in davar acher, then you won't. Okay?
And you wait. Okay, go.
Rabbi Yossi, name of Masnisim like Rabbi Yeshua. Let's say our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yeshua. Okay, guys, outside. Let's say you bring a carbon. There's no meat and there's no imurim, but you have dam. Can you sprinkle the dam or not? Do I need the presence of dam, of bas and imurim in order to sprinkle the blood? As we all know by now in Kachim, the ikar avoida is the sprinkling of the blood, right? Once you sprinkle the blood, the carbon's a good carbon. The burning of the imurim is a separate issue, and so is eating the basa, right? That was good. Once your dam is sprinkled, whether the imurim could be bought seems to be, that's more of the base of the mikdash, whether they can do it or not. But your carbon is taken care of. Question: let's say you go ahead, you bring a carbon, the imurim are lost, the bus is lost, or they both are tamei. Can you sprinkle the dam or not? That's machlekes tanoim, which we're going to see now. So you say this in kachim, guys. These are you say this in kachim, and they're very general. You say this, and once you get them down, they do repeat themselves quite often. And again, once you get them, they're there. They're there. Says the Gemara. Name of Masnisan like Reb Shimon. Our Mishnah that says that Tum is Chutra B'tzibur, and you can bring these 5 kabbanas. Let's say it's not like Reb Shimon. Well, Rabbi Yehuda. Well, Rabbi, I got it right the third time. Rabbi Yeshua. Let's say it's not like Rabbi Yeshua. The Tanya for Sisa Oilay Secha, and you should make your oila habasa v'hadam. Rabbi Yeshua Oimer, what do you dash in that pasuk? Habasa v'hadam. There's a relationship. Im ein dam, ein basar. If you can't sprinkle the dam, there's no basar. Then ein basar, and if there's no basar, ein dam. If the bus is lost, if the bus is lost, gone. Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, dam afa pi shein basar, shenemar. Dam zvachecha yishafech, and the dam of zvachecha you should spill. As soon as you have dam, spill it. Uma ani mekayim basisa l'secha basa dam. Why does he do Rabbi Yeshua's pasuk? Because you need the presence of basa to sprinkle the dam. Loimelcha ma dam bezrika. Just like dam is bezrika, af basa bezrika. So too basa was bezrika. Now, what do you mean basa was bezrika? Guys, fascinating. Haviyomer lul cotton yesh ben kevesh lemizbeach. There was a little airspace between the ramp and the mizbeach, and the kohen would stand on the ramp, guys, and he would take the meat and he would throw it over from the ramp onto the mizbeach, onto the pyre. So he would l'cher b'yotza the mitzvah of zrika because of that lull. So that's what Rabbi Eliezer learns from the pasuk, the relationship, just like dam is thrown, so too the basar is thrown. But he says, Ein achinami, says Rabbi Eliezer, if I have no meat around, I'm able to go ahead and sprinkle the blood. I'm able to go ahead and sprinkle blood. Now, why would you think that Rabbi Shua can be the Tana of a Mishnah? Let's see Rashi. Leimer Masnisan, the Amar Oimer v'shtei alechem, boyim b'tuma. V'yaf agav, the be'inyan ritzui tzitz. And even though you need the tzitz to go ahead and facilitate its acceptance, and the tzitz, as we said, according to every opinion except Rabbi Eliezer, the tzitz does not cause acceptance on eaten food. You have no shirayim, you have nothing left over. Hanirtzin, that are accepted. Ela ha'kaimetz levadai, she'atzitz moyel, v'chein minei damim le'hoyel tzitz lebasa el ledam. Okay, guys, outside. Why did Rabbi Yeshua just say, if there's no dam, if there's no basa, there's no dam? The corollary between a carbon mincha and a dam carbon, for example, the act of kamitza, when I go do a kaimitz, that equates with shchita. Taking the kaimitz, putting in a kli, that's the Kabbalah. Walking over the kaimitz to the mizbeach and touching the mizbeach is halacha. Burning the kaimitz is zrika. So in other words, I have four parallels from the avoida of the menachos to parallel what? The dam karbanis. So watch. As soon as I do kamitza, I just effectively shechted the carbon. When I do kamitza, the leftover flour that's in the kli shares that I did kamitza from is called shirayim. Good. The leftover, after I go ahead and do a shchita, the leftover is called meat. Says Yeshua, if I have no meat, I can't sprinkle the dam. Correct? Because in ein basar, ein dam. He just said that. In our Mishnah, if what's tamei, the shirayim are tamei. I do a kamitza. I can burn the kamitza, but the tzitz is not maratza on what? It's not maratza on achilos. It's not maratza on something that's eaten. So for all intents and purposes, I have no shirayim. Since I have no shirayim, Rabbi Yeshua can't be the Tana of our Mishnah. Because we had carbon oimer and the carbon oimer was a kaimitz. Shtei lechem is a different issue. All the karbanos over there in our Mishnah, they were tamei. It's mashma, you sprinkle the dam, but the bus is tamei because it's b'tzibur. You're bringing tumas hutra b'tzibur. The kahanim are tamei, right? And they're bringing the carbon, and nonetheless the meat's going to be tamei. And Rabbi Eliezer said, and the Mishnah says that it's a good carbon. Like Rabbi Yeshua, it should not be a good carbon. Lema masnisan the like Rabbi Yeshua, because like Rabbi Yeshua, I have no meat. The meat's tamei. I have no shirayim of the mincha. It's tamei. And the tzitz is not going to go ahead and somehow facilitate the bringing of, making it muta. I can't bring it. Lema masnisan the like Rabbi Yeshua. That's the hezbollah. Good. Okay, great. Now, so we have machlokes Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Eliezer, in fact, says, no, you have dam is enough, you have kaimitz is enough, and what he does with the pasuk is that what you do tzrika on the meat as well. Actually, good. That's not good. Rabbi Yeshua, man. Rabbi Yeshua nami aksiv v'dam zochecha yishafech. What does Rabbi Yeshua do with Rabbi Eliezer's pasuk? Amalach hakasiv gabe. It says by him, v'habasa tochel amid beis, and the basa should be right. V'habasa tochel. Right, you see the basa what is around. A basa tochel, that he says that the basa has to be around. Because the end of the pasuk says, dam is spilled, basa tochel. So the basa is around according to Rabbi Yeshua. You need basa in order to go ahead and sprinkle a dam. According to Rabbi Yeshua, why do you keep psukim? You're teaching me the same thing. Like Rabbi Yeshua, both psukim are teaching me that what? It says, v'dam zvachecha yishafech v'abasa tochel. So you see that dam in basar. And the first pasuk says, "Vasiso l'secha basla v'adam." So you see that what again? You need two. So it's telling me the same halacha that in order to sprinkle adam, you need basa. So let Rabbi Yeshua, why don't you two pasukim teach me the same thing? Chad ba'oila of chad b'shlamim. One to tell me that by the shlamim you need meat, and one to tell me by the carbon oila you need meat. Why can't you learn one from the other? Let's see. B'tzricha. Because rachmana ba'oila havamina oila he the chamiri shekain kolol. An oila is since it's kolol and it's not around anymore than meat, therefore you can't sprinkle the blood. Aval shlamim b'lei chamiri, it's not so chamer because it's eaten. Aim aloi. Because rachmana shlamim havamina adarabba. This page they achilas. You have two achilas. You have achilas of the kahanim, achilas of the mizbeach. Actually, you have the three. The achilas of the kahanim and the achilas of the chaz v'shoik that goes to the kayin, and the rest of the meat that goes to the owner. So you have two achilas. So therefore, I would say over there, maybe they were machmir, and there we say you need the meat to be around. Aval oila, the less by shtei achilas, emaloi kamash malon, that by both you need the meat around, and therefore Rabbi Yeshua needs two psukim, one for oila and one for shlamim. That's pasuk that Rabbi Eliezer quoted to say, "V'dams v'checha yishafech." It says that the dam of your carbon should go ahead on and be spilled, and meaning you only need is dam. The end of the pasuk says, and the meat should be eaten. So you see that Rabbi Yeshua's limud, you have basar at the end of the pasuk. Why does Rabbi Eliezer can't go ahead and do away with the fact that it says basar and dam in the same pasuk? And he's saying, in fact, you need basar. Why does he do with the basar teichel in the pasuk? Why does he do Rabbi Yeshua's raya that you need basar? What does he do with that raya? And for the Gemara, it's not that you need the basar to make the carbon kosher. It means you can't eat the basar until the dam is spilled. If that's all it comes to teach me, maybe it only comes to teach me that. Dam Okay, in other words, guys, look at the pasuk. Here's the way I'll touch the pasuk. The dam sevachecha yishafech va'abasa tochel. After if you spill the blood, after you do the zrika, then the meat can be eaten. Maybe that's the only game in town. How does Rabbi Eliezer know that's there to teach me in addition that if there's dam, that's all you need, right? He's learning two things. He's learning, A, you only need dam even though there's no basar, and B, you can only eat the basar after the zrika. Maybe it's only coming to teach me you can only eat the basar after the zrika. How do you know it's coming to teach me that there's a din of zrika even though there's no basar? In other words, his ikka din that we're bringing in this Gemara, how does he know that? Let's see the Gemara. So the Gemara answers, Amalach im kain, if that's the case, it's only come to teach me one thing. Nichtav Rav Mana habasa tochel. First, put the meat should be eaten. V'hodav adam zavachecha yishafech. Kidiksiv bereisha. Vasiso l'secha habasa v'adam. It's like, no, it's be consistent. Put basa before dam. Put the word basa before dam. Just like the pasuk says, Vasiso l'secha habasa v'adam. That's first. You should write habasa tochel v'dam zavachecha yishafech. That's what it's coming to teach me. Why in this pasuk does it put dam, but preface the dam to precede the basar? By switching it around, you hear two things. By putting the basar to the dam, you hear A, that you can't eat the basar until the dam is spilled, and B, even if the dam is v'checha yishafek, stop. Even if there's no basar tochel, you can go ahead and do the zrika. So nimtzu, we have a machlokas between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer, whether you need basar around in order to do the zrika. According to Rabbi Eliezer, you don't need it around. According to Yeshua, you do need it around. The Gemara is suggesting, as a result, since you need basar, and in this case, in addition by menachos, you need shirayim, and you don't have them because they're tamei. Rabbi Yeshua cannot be the Tana of Mishnah, which permitted the karbanos to be brought b'tamah. That's where we're holding right now. Good. It's a lot of information, but it's geschmack. Rabbi Yeshua ain't a basar mutar b'achila shizra kadam kal v'chaymer. Rabbi Yeshua, he uses the pasuk to teach me, guys. Rabbi Yeshua uses the pasuk to teach me that you need both around. So how does he know that you can only eat the basar after the zrika's tam? In other words, how does he know Rabbi Eliezer's then? Good. Kal v'chaymer imurim, the part that goes to Hashem. Chilesnahu, when it's not around loy ma'akva, it doesn't stop the carbon. Kiyisnahu, when it is around ma'akva. In other words, you wouldn't be able to eat the basar unless it's around. Dam the chilesa ma'akev, dam which is ma'akev, it's not around. Ki yisya loy kol shekein dema'akiv. Certainly it's ma'akiv. Good, great kavachem, guys. Madach emurim. If it's not around, you do this rika, you can eat the basar. But if it is around, you can't eat the basar. Dam, if it's not around, that it does not permit, right? And if dam is not around, that you can't permit the carbon. Certainly what? Certainly that you won't be able to eat the basar if it is around until it's sprinkled. Something that you learn from a kal v'chomer, Torah because of lakra, the Torah bought it to write a pasuk with damas v'chachik shafech v'bas tafel. Rabbi Yeshua kalecha dik lemidrash tarshinon. Anytime you can go ahead and make a drasha, you make a drasha, and therefore what? We have a drasha. Say very good. So again, we have two psukim. But sis olesecha basav adam and the damas v'chachik shafech. Rabbi Eliezer darshans that you don't need any basar around. Rabbi Yeshua darshans you do. In addition, they both agree that you cannot eat the basar until the dam is spilled, is sprinkled. Says the Gemara. Lema mastis and look Rabbi Yeshua. The key in the Amar being in Tarti, right? You need two things. You need the dam and the basar. It sits on achilas like maratza. I cheated you from Rashi, right? And it sits on achilas is not maratza, meaning it's not maratza on the shirayim, it's not maratza on the basar. Heki osi betuma. How can you go say it's brought betuma? Guys, I'll repeat this again. We saw it in Rashi, right? I saw it in Rashi, and I just, the Gemara says it here. Rabbi Yeshua says you need two things. In order for the carbon to be accepted, you really need only one thing. You need the sprinkling of the blood. But in order for the blood to be sprinkled, you need to have basar. In our Mishnah, you have no basar. And why? It's tameh. You have no basar. So how can he be the Tan of a Mishnah? That's the question. I'll say that tzitz is maratza. The tzitz is not maratza on achilas. It's not maratza. It's maratza on the dam. It's not maratza on meat. You have no meat. Says the Gemara. I feel came Rabbi Yeshua. You can see our Mishnah is even according to Rabbi Yeshua. El ksava Rabbi Yeshua had tzitz maratza ala ha'oilin. Right, the tzitz is maratza on oilin. Tzitz maratza on oilin. Rashi says al tumas haniktarim, on anything that you're going to go ahead and burn. Ala eshim. The hainu emurim. Moed Rabbi Yeshua the ikik kezayis chelev laachila in his beach. Zorik esadam kidam lekamon bebraisa bepirkin, as we see. Yeshua mekol azvachim shebetoira sheneshtai. As long as I have kezayis basar or kezayis chelev, I can do it. Pirish. The tzitz may not be maratza on achilos, on what you can eat. It is maratza on the tamei thing that goes up on the mizbeach. So what? Guys, rule of thumb, 3 parts to a carbon. Emurim, basa. Fred the Gemara, loy Rabbi Yeshua, you don't have basa over here. If you don't have basa over here, and the tzitz is not maratza, you have no carbon. And for the Gemara, you're right. You don't have basa, but you have emurim. The tzitz is maratza on number 2. It's maratza on the part that goes to Hashem. If I feel, even if I have a kazayas left, I can go ahead and sprinkle it down. So on Mishnah, you know what can be brought betuma? Because good, the tzitz can be maratza on the tummy dika meat. The tzitz could be maratza on the tummy dika emurim. Since the tzitz can be maratza on the tummy dika emurim, therefore, Rabbi Yeshua can be the Tana of our Mishnah as well. Again, that works very well. Those 3 things work very well. The tummy, emurim, basar work very well. So again, Akasha was there's no basar over here, right? There's no basar. It's tamei. So therefore, you can't do the zrika stam. You can't be the Tan of a Mishnah because the tzitz is not maratza on achilas. And for the Gemara, the tzitz is not maratza on achilas, but it is maratza on the emurim. Since it's maratza on the emurim that are tamei, you can't do the what? You can't do the sprinkling of the blood. So very geshmak. So that's what he says. The tzitz is maratza ala oilim. El ksav Rabbi Yeshua tzitz maratza ala oilim on the emurim. Hatena svachim dika oilim. Now, there is no emurim by the shtei lechem. There is no emurim by the oimer. So how? And the tzitz is not maratza on achilos. So how can that be brought betuma? And those are included in the 5 in our Mishnah. So how can you tell me Rabbi Yeshua is the Tan of the Mishnah? Good. You found a heta for the dam kabbanis. You did not find a heta for the what? The menachos, right? Because again, there's no emurim there. So what's the tzitz maratza on? It can be maratza on the shirayim, that tzitz is not maratza on achilas. So Amar Ki Amar Rabbi Yeshua Nami Dvin and Tarti B'Zvachim. Right? When does he say you need both? That's B'Zvachim. B'Menachos Lei Amar. B'Menachos he agrees you don't need. You don't need both. Over there he would agree that what that tzitz that you don't need both. So even if you have no shirayim, you can burn the kaimets. Even if you have no shirayim, because it's tummy, I can burn the kaimets. B'Menachos Lei Amar. You tell me by Menachos Rabbi Yeshua does not require shirayim. I v'hatnan. We learned in the Mishnah. Nitmu shirecha. If the shirayim of the mincha becomes tamei, avdu shireha, or they get lost. K'midas Rebbe Eliezer kshera. Like the midas Rebbe Eliezer, it will be kosher. You'll be able to go ahead and burn the klaimitz. K'midas Rebbe Yeshua psula. You couldn't burn the klaimitz. So you see
So
that body. He does need. He does need. You see by mincha, he does need the tzitz to be maratza on the shirayim, and it can't. Says the Gemara. I'll be with you in a second. K'midas will like k'midas. It's like him and not like him. K'midas Rebbe Yeshua the bean and tarti. It's like Rabbi Yeshua who holds that what you need both dam and basa. Like Rabbi Yeshua, but not like Rabbi Yeshua. The Ilu Rabbi Yeshua b'zvachim amar. He says you need both by zvachim, by benachas layamar. But benachas he says you don't need both. All you need is what? Is one. You only need is the tzitz miratza on the klaimitz. Yes.
No. It's good. I understand. I was going to ask what does the tzitz do for the benachos?
It's miratza on the klaimitz.
Yeah, miratza klaimitz. Yeah.
Just like the tzitz is maratz on the dam, the
right.
tzitz is maratz
on the klaimitz.
Again, what the tzitz does, guys, the tzitz is, we use the term that tum is chutcha b'tzibur. The tzitz is the facilitator of that. The tzitz is the facilitator of that, right? That's the way it works.
Why can't you say the Shei Alechem are hooked to the Kivsei Atzeres?
Yeah, I think you do. I mean, the Gemara is going to, yeah, the Gemara is going to, I don't know, the Gemara says it, Rashi says that the Shei Alechem, if you look at yes, once he says that the menachos are permitted, again, I think not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure. The shtei lechem mutter b'achila only al yedei, but again, it sits namratz on achilas. I have to see the shtei lechem. I didn't see it. Okay, that's if you look at Taisus, the Taisus Aimer shtei lechem, Aimer shtei lechem, the leka oilin mayikla neimar. Aimer shtei lechem, there's no oilin, right? Nothing goes on the mizbeach. What are you going to say? So how can it be brought betuma? There's a tenufa, there's an act of tenufa. So like the kamitza is to what? To the kaimetz, the tenufa, the weaving. They took the the lambs and with the shtei lechem and they waved them. So that's what the tzitz meratz on l'chayra. That avoida. Okay. Geschmack. V'ilu haitana savra afilu b'menachas umanu haitana the koi kavasei umachmet feimine, and this Tana who goes according to him and is machmer more than him, right? What is that going on? I thought I saw it this morning and understood what I'm talking about. Let me see. Where do you find a Tana that says it? The moment time. So he says the midah, but he says by zvachim yes, by menachas no. V'ilu haitana savra afilu b'menachas umanu haitana the koi kavasei umachmet feimine. Filu b'menachas, and there's a Tana says that he even says it by menachas. Umanu haitana the koi kavasei umachmet feimine. V'oi tanya omer v'yosi roy anias the Rabbi Eliezer b'menachas b'zvachim the Rabbi Yeshua b'zvachim menachas. So you see, there's a Tana that he holds even by menachas because he's saying that he holds like Rabbi Yeshua by menachas. So Rabbi Yeshua must hold by menachas also, and therefore he won't be the Tana of our Mishnah. The Rabbi Eliezer. The Rabbi Eliezer b'zvachim shahayu omer dam afal pish ein sham basar. The Rabbi Yeshua b'zvachim shahayu omer im ein dam ein basar. Im ein basar ein dam. The Rabbi Eliezer b'menachas shahayu omer. The Rabbi Eliezer b'menachas shahayu omer kaimetz afal pish ein shirayim. The Rabbi Yeshua b'menachas shahayu omer im ein kaimetz ein shirayim. Im ein shirayim ein kaimetz. So what, according to this Tana, how could he be the Tana of a Mishnah? In other words, we're comparing, guys, the shirayim to the basar and the kaimetz to the dam. And just like Rabbi Yeshua holds by a dam carbon, if there's no basar, there's no dam. So too he holds by shirayim. If there's no shirayim, there's no kaimetz. So therefore, he can't be the Tana of our Mishnah. So what, according to this Madhyama, can he be the Tana of the Mishnah? Elok sab Rabbi Yeshua had sitz meratza ala oilin v'ala achilois. Oh wow! The tzitz is meratza ala oilin v'ala achilois. The tzitz is meratza on thing that goes up on the mizbeach, and the tzitz is maratza even on achilos. Memela, it's not a problem, guys. Guys, if the tzitz is maratza on achilos, so you have basar and you have shirayim. You have both. And memela, why does Rabbi Yeshua hold? I can sprinkle the dam if I have basar. I can do the klimitz if I have shirayim. So very geschmack, I have it, right? I have it. Why? Because the tzitz is maratza al achilos, and therefore he can be the Tana of our Mishnah. Very geschmack. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, Ihachi, am I Kamidas Rabbi Shimon Psula? Where is Rabbi? We said Kamidas Rabbi Shua, that's puzzle. Guys, we said by Zvachim it's puzzle. Why is it puzzle? Why is it puzzle? If it's Tamei, it sits as Maratza. And for the Gemara, Ovid V'Sarov. Guys, what happens? It's Tamei, it works, right? Guys, we're holding right now that sits as Maratza and Achilas. If I have Tamei Dika meat, can I do this Rika according to Rabbi Yeshua? Right? What happens if it's not there? It's lost or burnt. Ain basa, ain dam. Like Rabbi Eliezer, could I do the zrika? If it's burnt or lost, I could do the zrika. So kamidas Rabbi Yeshua by zvachim means only if it's lost or burnt. But ein achinami, if it's tamei, it won't be possible. You would be able to do that. Do the zrika because the tzitz is maratza al achilas. So that's what the Gemara is saying, guys.
So we said if it's tamei, it's like you didn't have it.
What?
I thought we said if it's tamei, it's like you didn't have it.
But the tzitz is maratza al achilas. There's so saying if I don't have I don't have it in a way, shalom, but you can make a chilik between physically not having it and halachically not having it. When we say that the tummy you don't have, it's tamei, I don't have it because it's tamei, but it's physically there. What does the tzitz do? It makes like I have it, but the tzitz can't physically create it if it's lost or burnt. Got it? Okay, good. Says the nitma laman katanila. Why do you learn nitma? In other words, nitma, it's both Rebbe Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua would agree. So why are you learning tamei? Says Gemara, Rebbe Eliezer pshita hashli yesh leima avi b'sarif the lesnu machsher Rebbe Eliezer nitma dis mi boy. Guys, now nitma laman katani Rebbe Eliezer. Why do you learn tamei by Rebbe Eliezer? He mardach if it's not there, it all halach physically it's not there. If it's halachically not there, it's still okay. Rebbe Eliezer nitma dis mi boy. The hashli yesh leima avi b'sarif the lesnu machsher Rebbe Eliezer. Nitma dis mi boy el pshita Rabbi Yeshua the katani psula. So big question, guys. Watch. You learn three cases. You learn tamei, you learn lost, and you learned burnt. Tamei, let Rabbi Eliezer you don't need because madach if it's lost or burnt, you could do the zrika. When it's not there at all, certainly you can do the zrika when it is there and it's tamei. So therefore, you must have learned it like Rabbi Yeshua. So you told me like Rabbi Yeshua, it would work. So l'chayra and Rabbi Yeshua said psula. Oy tanya Rabbi Yeshua oimer kol azvach shebekayra b'ink shenitma basar v'chelav kayim. Whether the basar is tamei and the chelav is around, u'b'ink shenitma chelav u'basar kayim, or whether the chelav is tamei the basar is around, v'zorik es adam avol nitmu travayu loy. But if both are tummy, they're not. So pirish. I have three parts of the carbon: the dam, the basar, and the imurim. I can sprinkle the dam as long as I have one or the other. But if I don't have both, now who in the world needs both? Only Rabbi Yeshua. Ella alma ksav Rabbi Yeshua einat sitz meratza ala oilen. The tzitz is not meratza on oilen. So we're back to square one. V'loy ala chilos. Ella la oilen Rabbi Yeshua hi. Masnisan. V'loy kasha kan lechatchila kan di eved. Ki an Rabbi Yeshua lechatchila. When does Rabbi Yeshua say that that you can't do it? That's lechatchila. But b'di eved v'tum is hutcha loy. Umara taim the shani la Rabbi Yeshua ben lechila the eved tanya nitma basay nifsel ashiyatza chutz lekloyim. The basay becomes tamei or becomes pasul or goes outside the curtains. Rabbi Yeshua la Yisrael. Rabbi Yeshua you can't do it. However, my Rabbi Yeshua shim sarak hurtza, right? right? So therefore, l'chayra, it's very, very what? We have a good. We have a teretz to the kasha. Rabbi Yeshua, he can be the Tana by Mishnah. It says psula over here. One's the Evid, one's the Chatchila. Fred Marchad the psula, the Evid mashma. When it says it's puzzle, it's mashma fila the Evid. Don't give me a teretz that he says that you shouldn't do it, and if you do it, it's okay. Psula means puzzle. It's not okay. V'oid chamesh devorim boyin lechatchila mashma. A Mishnah is mashma lechatchila, not the Evid. So therefore, he can't be the Tana of the Mishnah. Elaloi kasha. No, he could be the Tana of the Mishnah. Kan biyachid, kan bitzibor. Kan biyachid, kan bitzibor. When did Rabbi Yeshua say all these dinim, guys? That's by a carbon yachid. Then it's puzzle if he does the right. However, by a tzibor, lechatchila, you can bring bituma, because guys, tuma is hutra bitzibor. If tuma is hutra bitzibor, you don't need to tzitz at all. So Rabbi Yeshua is the time of the Mishnah. We just went through a whole block to go ahead and figure that out with the easiest teretz in the world. Kan b'yachid, kan b'tzibur. Our Mishnah is speaking about b'tzibur. And all this Torah about sprinkling, having the dam around and bus around at the same time, that's by a carbon yachid. But if tum is such a b'tzibur, then lechatchila, you were able to bring it. Thank you all for listening.
Well, staff.
You know what? I'm going to see tomorrow night, B'Shir. Maybe I'll try to get it on earlier.
Okay.
Why do you want to do that?